Greetings, strangers, queer and pleasant. I'm not Laura Kate Magnetdale.
And I'm not Jane Aerith Magnetdale, and welcome to another episode of Queer and Pleasant Strangers.
The last one of the year.
The last one of the year. By the time you hear it, it'll probably be the first one of the next year.
Indeed.
But we're recording this on festive eve.
On festive eve.
On the last eve of the year.
So we take no rest.
We took like a week and a half's rest. We were going to do an episode like a couple of weeks ago, and then we were sleepy. And
we were very sleepy. We had quite a trying week.
It has been quite a week, but we're now here, ready for a fresh year.
I've got a hot chocolate.
You do. You've got a fancy little vegan hot chocolate that's like a wooden spoon with a stick of chocolate on it.
Yeah.
That you're stirring in your little milk.
I'm stirring in my little oaty milk.
You're cozying in the last
in for a
2024.
podcast, yeah. You can tell what party animals we are.
You offered me hot chocolate on a stick to stir in milk. I was like, oh, that might be too cozy for podcasting.
We've already had a nap.
We had a nap.
In preparation for this recording.
We're real party animals for the end of the new year.
How are you finding your 30s?
I'm loving my 30s, honestly. They've been the best decade. I can have a party, I can do a wiggle, but also I feel no guilt in having a little afternoon nap on the sofa.
Just a little nap. You can be a bit cozier.
Yeah, we did New Year's at the weekend when it was a bit more convenient, and then we're on a week. And not even that. I don't think we were up till midnight. We just had a little.
We were up till midnight.
We socialised little before New Year's, and then it got to New Year's itself. It's like, well, it is a weekday. We'll have a little.
It is a weekday, and I was, forced to do my day job.
You had one day of day job today.
Just the one day. I got the bank holiday off. Woohoo! But,
we're having
a bit difficult to try and organise anything.
Yeah. So we're having a cosy little soft night.
And you're invited to our little cosy time.
Yeah.
Where we be queer and pleasant and strange.
Indeed. We've been playing stuff.
We have. What have you played since last we spoke?
What have we played? Where do we start on things we've played? We played some Zelda stuff, as is somewhat tradition when the festive period comes around.
When we have free time.
Yeah, we tend to binge a Zelda, and we've been slowly playing through all the Zeldas that we haven't played through together before.
Yeah.
And one of those that we've both played many times separately, but just never together apparently, was A Link to the Past.
Indeed.
A game that both of us remember pretty solid chunks of, even if not 100%, but between the two of us we were like, yeah, we got this.
Yeah. Weirdly, it's been like quite a while. It must have been quite a while longer than I thought it was, because there were definite like big old holes in my brain where content should have been.
I think it was the year we moved in together at our current place was the year that you got pretty into randomizers for A Link to the Past. I think it was the first year we were living together.
So it's been about 5 years.
Maybe 6 years since...
5 or 6 years since I was very heavily into randomizers and was playing it like 3 times a week.
Yeah, so you've got good familiarity with where some of the weird hidden chests and things are. As much as I love that game, and I think it is like very clearly the genesis of many of the things I love about Zelda. A lot of the music I love, a lot of the sensibilities around dungeon design and pacing, and a lot of the weapons that feel like a traditional Zelda inventory.
Yeah.
A lot of that blueprint of my era of Zelda is there.
That is certainly there, but also there is still a little tinge of the bullshit from the first game.
Yeah, there are some holdovers of some bullshit design choices that, we've not played through Zelda 1 or 2 together as a thing, and I don't think we ever will. Both of them are a little too bullshit for us to necessarily enjoy.
Yeah, and I agree with something that has been said a lot about the first Zelda specifically, is that you needed to be there. You needed to be playing it with other people who were like, oh, I found a little secret.
Yeah.
Here's a little secret. And these days it's like, you'd basically have to do it with a guide.
Yeah.
There isn't that, camaraderie of, I found a thing, you found a thing. Hey.
It's a game to chip at over a long period of time and not a sit and play it through over a couple of days the way we enjoy doing our little Zelda plays. But yeah, A Link to the Past, for all of its being a fantastic game that has held up very well, there are some bullshit design choices it makes occasionally.
Like teaching you that a thing does a thing, and then the next time you see it, it doesn't do that thing.
Yeah, because, a good example of this, there are statues that have, like, big round eyes and the tongue sticking out.
Yep.
And both of us remembered that at some point in the game you have to pull that tongue on a statue to progress through a dungeon.
Yep.
So the whole game, every time these statues came up, we're running up to them, pulling the tongues, and nothing's happening.
Yeah, and to be fair, they only appear in, like, a couple of dungeons.
I think it's only one dungeon that suddenly it becomes a mechanic.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, if you didn't... The game had told you up to that point that's not a thing, and then suddenly it's a thing. And there's a lot of stuff like that in the game that is like a rule until it's not a rule.
Cracked walls aren't necessarily a sign that there is...
Yes, the bombable-looking walls that sometimes aren't bombable, that sometimes are. When you crack a floor, and you can see, like, a room underneath it, that means that you can fall down to another room. Yeah. Whereas if it's black, you fall to a void and you lose health.
Except in the Lost Woods.
Except in the Lost Woods, where seeing the void doesn't mean you'll get hurt, you do need to jump down there. Things like Molduga, the boss that, like, there's no need for that boss that bounces you away to also be on an arena that has no guardrails, and if you get knocked off, you completely lose all progress in the boss fight. That doesn't make that boss fight more
what
fun.
They could have done to make that more manageable? If they really wanted to make that kind of bullshit and difficult, they could have put that in the room with the moth boss. That's like a moving floor and spikes.
Yeah,
give us the spiked walls that the spikes can jump out at you, and weird pizza boss.
I said at the time, I wouldn't have minded spikes in that. Like, oh, you've gave me a bouncy boss, and there is a punishment for being bounced to the edge. But, like...
Not a complete fucking reset?
Yeah, a complete fucking reset of boss progress is like, oh, that's... We did beat it on the first try, but I was looking at it going, like, why is this fight designed the way it is?
Mm-hmm.
Those acknowledgements being what they are, clearly so... Like, my real point of falling in love with the Zelda series was Ocarina of Time, and it is really interesting anytime I replay A Link to the Past and going... So much of Ocarina of Time is 3D less bullshit Link to the Past.
Yeah.
Like, Link to the Past is so clearly the template that walked so that Ocarina of Time could run. Yeah.
And I don't think they're that far apart. I could be wrong.
They're not that far apart, no.
Maybe 6 years.
Like... Even if you're just looking at big picture stuff, the go get your 3 dungeons, then there is an interaction with the evil bad that changes the world state, and now there's 7 dungeons to do. Like, a lot of the structural, this is what a Zelda adventure at its core is.
Yeah, like, we've got our, like, little eye things that you were going to shoot with some kind of projectile.
Yeah. It's where it feels like Zelda really found an identity and went, ooh, we could be this. And it did make me, and I said this at the time, it did make me go, we should find one of those ROMs of BS Zelda, the Satellaview game that is built in the Link to the Past engine, and give that a play at some point. Yeah. I want to add that to our list of ones to do.
Not that we would ever condone emulation.
I mean,
according to Nintendo.
I think for a game that, like, is physically impossible and to play and has been for like 30 years outside of that context, I don't think anyone's going to come knocking our door down.
Well, I don't know. Nintendo are very litigious.
But on that note of Zelda-y things, I do have one other we'll briefly mention.
Yeah.
I've been playing around with running mods on the Wii U, out of curiosity.
Yeah, real fancy.
Yeah, which partly came out of a desire to, at some point, like, we do these playing through Zeldas together. At some point, we're going to do Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass, the DS ones, which...
Apparently that's just better on the Wii U.
Yeah, like, we've been trying to work out for a while if there's, like, a good, convenient way to, like, have it on the telly so whoever's not playing can see it, but, like, still play it in a good way.
Yeah.
And the Wii U seems to be the answer to that, of have a touchpad device with 2 screens in front of you, but also the game is on the telly. But that was a good excuse to start playing around with mods. And I've not had a huge amount of success, but I did manage to get Linkle to be the playable character model in Wind Waker.
It's a cute mod.
Yeah, I didn't manage to get, like... didn't manage to get the mod that would change some of the pronouns in the dialogue to work.
No, so we are treating this as the trans experience.
Yes, we are playing this as Linkle is getting misgendered, and you better get your act together by the next time we play, quote unquote. You know, when I've sorted the patches out. But it's been fun working out, like, it's been fun playing around and seeing what a Wii U in a no longer has support for connecting to Nintendo's network era looks like. The Pretendo network, which is the fake Nintendo Online you can connect your Wii U to in a post Nintendo account world, is interesting. It's brought features like Miiverse back to life, and it's curious seeing the Nintendo probably wouldn't have officially approved these Miiverse communities that pop up that are kind of fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a thing we've been doing.
Yeah.
What about you? What you been playing?
I played a little bit of Ocarina of Time. I started that one on my own a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just... I was obviously itching for something Zelda-y. And then you were like, do you want to do one together? And that's when we went for... Link to the Past, because we have done Ocarina of Time together, we have done Wind Waker together.
Yeah.
But I do think the more I play through them, Wind Waker is probably my favourite.
Wind Waker, I still think, is the most impressive Zelda game in many ways. It might not be my personal favourite, but I think if it had been a template the Zelda series had like really steered into, I think that would have been a great thing for the series.
Like, I love building out the map. I love all the just like exploring the worlds. With the HD version, obviously, I prefer being able to use the sail, so I don't have to keep changing the wind direction every time. Like some of the little quality of life stuff that offers. But
I like that it has a little sense of humour to it.
Yeah, I also love that because of those cartoon eyes, those giant cartoon eyes. Like, Link's expressions very often can really, like, make a scene.
But also, like, the enemy ones. Like, the one I'm thinking of is when you're sneaking under the barrel in Forsaken Fortress that first time, and anytime you get too close to a moblin, and they do the dramatic and turn around, and their face is, like, cartoonish, exaggerated, shocked face. They've got so much flesh on their faces that it almost wobbles as they're sniffing around for you. Like, the whole face is jowly.
Yeah.
And, like, that exaggerated cartoon aesthetic is wonderful. Even if not for the main series games, I wish like that had been the handheld art direction we'd kept.
Yeah, and the musical cues in that, as again mentioning like the Forsaken Fortress scene, like them turning around and they're like you're under your barrel, but you're slightly too close to them, and you get that like dramatic. Like thump.
Yes.
And then like as you're sword fighting, you get the the progressive crescendo of
yes, where your sword hits sort of emphasized with the music hits.
Yeah, your little string hits.
Like that whole system is so satisfying of like your sword's hits impacting the soundtrack. Why is that not in every Zelda game? Right?
Because they're cowards.
Well,
not because they're cowards, but because the people who played Wind Waker and didn't get gritty.
Why isn't it Edgy the Hedgy?
Well, that was a whole different game, and we'll talk about that when we get to
we will,
watched, I guess. Spoilers.
But yeah, it's been nice to start revisiting Wind Waker, and I'm looking forward to getting it to work so that people will stop misgendering Linkle.
Right.
But that Linkle model looks cute, though.
Does look very cute.
Yeah. What else have we been playing?
We played some board games.
We did.
We played some big-ass board games.
Should we talk about the big one we played on UDP?
Yes.
On Unicorn Dance Party Day?
Yeah. We played Star Wars Rebellion, the board game by Fantasy Flight Games. From 2017, I think this came out.
Yeah.
This is an asymmetrical kind of dudes on a map type game.
You got a star system of planets in front of you.
You have 32 planets in front of you. Some of them are more productive than others. And you have one person playing as the Empire. They are trying to basically build a force that is completely undefeatable, and ultimately they are trying to look for where the rebel base is and uncover it and basically destroy it. Meanwhile, the rebels are trying to complete missions in order to win enough reputation within the galaxy to basically start a revolution and the overthrowing of the Galactic Empire.
It's basically for the rebellion. Your entire goal is remain undetected and undefeated for X number of turns. But the more of these little secret objectives you can complete, you can shorten that timer, so there's fewer rounds that you have to stay hidden, which is good. Because the Empire is basically, as quickly as possible, trying to spread across the galaxy and identify where you might or might not be.
Yeah, and you've also got quite interesting things of in each system you can have a space fight and a ground fight, which is something that I remember absolutely loving from my favourite Star Wars video game, Empire at War. There was a whole mode where you could just set up an ongoing evolving campaign of I'm trying to take over the galaxy and defeat the rebels, or quite the opposite from the rebel side. And I really enjoyed that. That's captured that quite nicely in the board game, even though as our first game we did struggle a bit with working out, or we had no context for what is the pace of this game.
Yeah.
How fast do we need to be attempting to do things? But certainly, it wasn't as hard to learn as something like, say, Lord of the Rings, War of the Ring.
It felt similar in as much as you're doing an asymmetrical gameplay style where one of the players is very specifically trying to stay undetected and complete their little secret mission, while the other side has overwhelming numbers on their side.
Yes.
But it was considerably less daunting of a teach and less overwhelming of a moment-to-moment, decision-making and micromanaging process. I think helped by a lot of factors there are far fewer places to be on the board. You've not got multiple win conditions to juggle. It's it really is one way of winning per team.
Yeah.
It is a lot clearer very quickly what you should be doing turn to turn. And I think a lot of that helped it feel like a War of the Ring with a bit of a tighter pacing.
Yes, and I think also by virtue of the different ways you can set it up, and the fact that the rebels can just go, we're gonna be in this particular position, we're not gonna say where, and we're gonna set that up quite early on. It means that there is always going to be some variety to that, and also the variable setup version where you're just pulling cards out of the probe deck and working out how that gets set up and how you're going to spread out your forces is certainly going to help make there be more variety. Whereas Lord of the Rings, War of the Ring always starts with exactly the same setup, and not only that, it's a huge setup.
Yes.
I have definitely enjoyed that game, but it's
a commitment.
It's such a commitment. I always say that our first game was 5 hours of this, including the teach, by the same person who taught us the War of the Ring. Thank you, RTFM. But it didn't feel so insurmountable at any point, and it didn't feel like.
War of the Ring, even if it's not that much longer than some of the big games we could play, it a lot of the time feels like it's being used on minutia-focused tasks that make it feel like a bigger upfront commitment than other similarly lengthed games feel. Yeah.
Yeah, set up and tear down all so much easier, again, despite being a real sprawl of a game, because it is 2 huge-ass boards. Side to side. I don't know if it's possible to set this up on 2 separate tables if you've got less space, but we just about managed with the table extended as far as it would go, and just about everything removed from it. Usually we've got snacks on one end, but this was not really. Can't really manage that. But yeah, we had a good game, and I very much enjoyed it, despite getting absolutely trounced quite quickly as you worked out what the pace was, and I was I've got so much in the build queue, I just need to get some of these things out.
You say that. You were right next to where the rebellion was hidden.
Yeah.
And had even mentioned, I bet they're there. Tried to move into the space where the rebellion was and couldn't because you had your Death Star. And I was just there going oh god, oh god, oh god,
coming.
oh god. And then you started exploring different places. I was you were literally on my doorstep. And
I didn't have time to explore your space. It was I'm gonna, hope that this was a double bluff, that you were trying to keep me away from that place.
Yeah, well, that was my thought, was it did look like I was trying to defend that space quite heavily, and I had a very good, very legitimate, like a very honest reason I verbalized why I was attacking you there. I was like, you've seen my hand of objectives, you know I have an objective about trying to defeat the Death Star. The Death Star happens to be here. That's why I'm coming for you. I'm not doing it to defend that tiny little nowhere place. And apparently I sold that well enough.
It wasn't just that. It was the fact that because I couldn't retreat because I had the Death Star, and then you like kept fighting in that same place. You were like, well, I want to get my objective. I want to defeat the Death Star. It kept me there, whittling down forces to nothing.
Yeah.
And then it was like, it would have taken me several moves to get to a point where I could try to go to that one spot. On the other hand, I had loads of stuff on the other side of the system, and I could just move. I could like make 3 really good moves through other sort of, like sectors.
You had a batch of like 4 or 5 places over there it could be, and you had the ships to do the exploring.
Yeah, so I managed to do that big sweep through, but like literally on your next turn, you managed to get 3 points.
You did the statistically correct thing. Yeah. While I was sat there going, oh god, I was unfound by the skin of my teeth. Despite neither of us like quite getting the pacing stuff we should have done, it was still like it could have gone either way. Nail biter of the finish.
And I've looked at other people on BGG talking about like how long it takes to play and that sort of thing. And round wise, we certainly hit like an average of what is expected for that game to last. Even though, obviously, the individual turns sometimes took us a lot longer to work out based on, like, just our understanding of things and like, trying to work out rules and things.
Part of it was just us not knowing that we didn't need a special card to just move a unit to a new neighbouring bit of space.
We just needed a spare leader.
We just needed someone to tell them to go over there.
And we do have the expansion, so we will have slightly different combat next time we play. A slightly more, I believe they call it cinematic combat. And different tactics cards. But I'll be interested to see how that changes things with, I believe it's like 3 or 4 extra units for each faction, and some different rules around combat. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. We played some other board games.
We did.
Shall we talk about Dune Imperium Uprising?
Yeah, so this is a deck building, worker placement game in the Dune universe, or the Duniverse, based largely on the second Dune movie. Given all the artwork in it. This is sort of a 2.0 version of Dune Imperium, which takes like a lot of the same symbols and ideas and carries it over to a slightly more gritty, slightly more interactive, and slightly deeper strategy game of the same thing. While at the same time, like, as I said to you, like, a couple of days later when we went to friend's house who owned the original, like, I think you would be fully able to play their version of the game because you know everything you know from having played Uprising.
Yeah. Like, the way I would explain this in its simplest form is it is a worker placement game where in order to send a worker to a specific space, you also need to play a card with a matching region icon on it.
Yeah.
And that might do some other things for you, particularly dependent on if you've committed to certain factions, you'll sometimes get bonuses for certain cards. And then at the end, cards that you haven't used will get you some different bonuses at the end. The other factor that it has is there is a combat mechanic where the more you've committed to combat throughout a set of taking turns, you will get some bonuses that change per round, and those might be quite significant.
Yeah, so basically the game lasts until someone has 10 victory points, or until 10 combats have been fought. And at the end of basically you will draw a hand of cards. You will play cards with matching symbols, as you mentioned, in order to put people into worker placement spots. Once you've used your 2 people, or 3 people if you've unlocked your extra person, you reveal the rest of your hand, and instead of getting the things at the top of the card, you will get things right at the bottom of the card. And that could be things like extra combat strength in the combat that runs at the end, or that could be buying power for buying new cards from a market of what, 5 available, I think it is 5 or 6 available cards to improve your deck. And given that the game is probably only going to last 10 rounds, and there aren't that many places that you can draw extra cards.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Obviously there are certain things you can do that will change that slightly. But, like, most of the time you're probably only going to see new cards that you've bought maybe 5 times, if you're really lucky.
Yeah, it is a game of balancing, in the moment, what cards are going to allow me to do the best worker placement stuff. And when you're shopping, it's like, which cards are going to enable me doing the things with my workers that I want to do, versus what's going to be useful if it's sat dead in my hand for in between turns. Is this going to allow me to buy more things to increase that deck building cycle, to maybe buy cards that are worth points? Am I focusing more on getting that combat so that I'm routinely winning those combat bonuses? Do I split my allegiance across multiple factions so I get a little bit of bonus for a lot of them? Because lots of the factions, if you put like a couple of points in, will unlock some places on the board you can go. Yeah. Or do you really commit hard to one faction and get its big bonuses?
Well, the other thing with it is all 4 factions, if you get at least 2 points, you will get a victory point.
Yeah.
So it is kind of worth going up at least 2 points with every single faction. But then there's further bonuses for going higher up the board with your basically sort of forming a union with that particular group. But if somebody else manages to get higher up there than you, then they will steal that 1 extra victory point from you.
You might have cards in your hand that are like, this card only works if you have gone like very heavily committed to a faction and are the highest point ranked person in that faction. And if someone outranks you, suddenly that card doesn't work anymore. It's an interesting one.
It really is. And like on top of that, every leader has a signet ring special ability. So that might be drawing a card or getting some water. Water is quite an important and very limited resource to try and access various other points on the board. You've got trying to claim sandworms, so there's things you have to do in order to be able to use a sandworm at all. But then there's places you can go grab a sandworm and then use that in combat at the very end, and then it just goes away again. But it adds more strength to your combat than other things. Apparently they've done a whole system where you can incorporate bits from the base game into this, or bits from the 2 expansions for the base game into this as well. And I think it's quite interesting that is how they are going. Like, they're not killing off the original. Some people actually completely prefer the original by virtue of it being a little bit simpler and easier to introduce people to. But I think it's a nice idea that they are trying to do both. And making sure that it doesn't feel like people who just got the original don't feel that they've been abandoned now that the new kid is on their block.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's a fun, deep game. It's got a really easy AI to run.
Yeah.
We played 2-player, which means you need to run a 1 AI. I did do it slightly wrong at the time. I made it slightly too hard for us. And I missed one of the quite important rules. But having read over it since and looked at a digital version of that same AI, which is just entirely possible in an app, it is really easy to run those AIs. There's something like 10 different faction leaders you can play, and they will all have like 1 special ability and 1 special ability that triggers when 1 particular card comes out of their starting deck. So it's quite interesting the way all of it combines together and adds a lot of variety, and there's the marketplace of cards that you can buy is like 100 and something cards, I think. So that is certainly a good variety of things that will come up in different orders for different games, and hopefully add lots of variety. Yeah, very, very, very much enjoying that so far, and I've also been playing the digital version of the base game too. I almost won a game the other day.
Ooh.
I'm getting there. I'm getting an understanding. I am getting what you managed to get while just playing the game the first time on your own.
Yeah!
Because you're better at head maths.
I've got head numbers.
Head numbers? I don't have head numbers. I have numbers on a piece of paper. What about you? What else have you played?
We played more boarded games.
More boarded
It's
games.
been a big
more
board
games.
game. More board games. Very many board games. We played the Power Rangers deck building game Shattered Grid expansion.
We did.
The best. We've talked about this before. This is sort of asymmetric deck building game.
Yes.
One of its sort of big mechanics is you've got your shop row in the middle, and sometimes hero or villain cards will be dealt out, which will deal damage to the opposing faction if they're not dealt with. So you can't, as a hero, you can't buy a villain card to put in your deck, but you can spend buying power to defeat it and get some kind of bonus and get it off the row.
Yes.
The key mechanic of the Shattered Grid expansion is if you have the base game and maybe other expansions, like we have the Zeo expansion, you have those on standby.
Yeah, because the base game and the Zeo version are both standalone games that you can play on their own.
Yep. So what you do is you start playing with this new version, and then when someone's health has gone under 20 out of 30, you flip over a card that will randomly select one of those other core sets, and that will also get dealt out, and there will now be 2 shop rows, meaning additional twice as many options of things to be purchasing for deck building purposes, but also the potential for twice as many things to be dealing you damage over time every turn.
Yes.
If the wrong things get dealt out that you then have to deal with.
Yeah, the only real benefit there is that the shattered grid, the extra grid that's going on top, will not refill at the end of the round. So there is potential of just whittling it down a little bit. And as long as you don't kill or buy the last thing on it, it will stay at that weakened state.
Rather than just being dealt out another one.
Yeah.
It definitely accelerates the pace of the game a little bit. Just by nature of more options, but also more things that are doing you damage per turn you've got to suddenly deal with.
Yeah.
And I like the flexibility of having additional tools to think about in that tool set.
Yeah. I think they did a really good job with that as a deck building game. As I think we've talked about before in here, I got very into deck building games when I first got into board gaming, but one thing I really struggled with is playing them with you, because you are an expert at games like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon.
I used to semi-seriously do deck building in TCGs.
Which, for me, for my tiny amateur brain and my difficulty with numbers, is a little disheartening when you lose every single game. But no, it's fine. But Power Rangers is one of the few that I'm just about able to hold my own on.
It's one where the more we've played it, the more wins you've got, the more frequently you've been winning against me.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
I'm getting there slowly. But yeah, I enjoy the asymmetry. I enjoy the fact that the different villains have all different powers, and then different powers again when you flip them over once you've attached a card to all 4 sides of them. And then obviously there's the addition of, as you're buying extra villains to go into your lair, them adding extra things, and as you add the core game, the Zeo, the Shattered Grid expansion, there's more options for how that can play out in different ways. So I think it's really interesting, and enjoying that and finding it way less disheartening than something like Base Clank in Player vs. Player.
Yeah. We played one other board game, which is another variant of one we've played and talked about before.
Yeah, we played Seven Wonders 2nd edition.
Yeah, so we've talked about Seven Wonders Duel before, which is the 2-player specific, slightly tweaked version of Seven Wonders. Very similar game. You are fundamentally drafting cards through slightly differing mechanics, but you are drafting cards to create your own loop of resources you just generically have access to, in order to try and build your point-scoring engine while having to buy as few resources as possible from neighbouring players. And some cards will have built-in icons that will let you build certain other cards for free, and certain card types, when you invest in collecting them, will exponentially give you more points the more you commit to those mechanics. And there's combat, which you get rewarded for not getting completely overrun with. Seven Wonders itself very similar to that.
Yeah.
Just in a higher player count with a slightly different combat mechanic and a slightly different drafting mechanic.
Yeah, I'm not so much a fan of the combat. It doesn't feel quite as satisfying as it does in base or in Seven Wonders Duel. And I think that is because losing a fight versus winning a fight doesn't feel as like push and pull as it does with Duel.
In Seven Wonders Duel, it's here is a push and pull meter that is getting pushed further or more or less one way or the other.
Yeah.
Whereas in Seven Wonders, it is a binary state of did you win or lose compared to the player next to you.
Yeah.
What I will say that I like about Seven Wonders' way of doing it is early, like the earlier the round is, the less the penalty for losing a fight.
Yes.
That it's really it's the third round. It's the final age that really makes like a big difference if you lose the fight.
Because the penalty is still a -1 for you, but it's a +5 for them.
Yeah, it's a -1 no matter how far into the game you are, but it's 1 point for the winner, then 3 points, then 5 points.
Yeah.
And I do like that. It sort of means that you can not worry so much in the first age, maybe even the second age, about having combat and going, no, I want to build myself up for a better long game.
I want an engine. I want blue cards for making final game
and
points.
Maybe I'll think about the combat when there's 3-point combat cards coming out in the last era, rather than chipping away in early rounds.
Yeah,
and I do think that works quite well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine in its own right. I think there is something just a little bit tighter about Seven Wonders Duel, which is weird because very often I find myself playing Seven Wonders Duel going, I wish there was a bit more to this.
Yeah, the other thing I will say I think is an interesting difference between the two is Seven Wonders is it's a drafting game in a very traditional sense. Like if you're someone who's done Magic the Gathering drafts, it's you see your cards, you pass them on, you get handed cards that you completely haven't seen before to continue drafting. Seven Wonders Duel has this sort of shapes of cards laid out on the table where some of them are face up and some are face down.
Yeah, like Pyramid Solitaire.
Yeah, but it does mean that right from the start of drafting, you can see some of the things you might want to draft towards and try and push the other person into uncovering so that you can draft them. There is a strategy element to that drafting that is very different to a blind draft scenario. And I don't think one is inherently better or worse than the other. They're just very different styles of drafting. Part of me kind of prefers the completely blind draft, in that I don't have to see a thing that would work really well for my thing and then watch someone else take it and get annoyed.
Yeah.
If someone takes something that would be great for me, I don't have to know about it. I can be in blissful ignorance of how much better my build could have been.
No, and also playing Seven Wonders in 4-player.
Yeah.
Because you are initially dealt a hand of 7 cards, you are certainly going to see some of those cards come back to you.
But you're better off assuming that none of them will still be there. Don't rely on any of them coming back.
Indeed. I was several times surprised by what had come back to me.
Yeah. But yeah, it was an interesting game that was a very easy learn having played Duel. It was I know the 4 or 5 things that are different.
Yeah. We played Seven Wonders 2nd edition once before. And enjoyed it, but this was somebody had bought it, realised that it was a 3-player minimum, and then we were we'll teach you how to play it. We've played this before, and got through it. It was like a 15-20 minute teach.
We played 3 games back to back. We kept finishing it and going, that was good, that was quick, we could do it, we could squeeze another one in.
Yeah, I think we squeezed 3 games in under an hour.
Yeah.
Just about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was I would definitely play more of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be interested to see how the expansions change that game. Because, it does feel very light.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just me, just that lover of real heavy fucking games. But yeah,
I mean, as you pointed out, we did play 3 games in less than an hour, so it was not a heavyweight game.
Yeah, I'm not adverse to a game that doesn't last super long. Hive doesn't necessarily last super long, but it is real brainy.
Yeah.
But that was Seven Wonders, more Seven Wonders. What, have you played anything else?
I think that's the bulk of what we've been playing.
But was it the skull of what we've been playing?
Well then.
Time for this.
Oh, hello. Hi, Doctor.
Oh, yes, do come in. How can I help you today?
So,
Yeah, well, it's quite sleepy there.
yeah,
Isn't it?
I've got this real problem with being all lethargic.
Right, yes.
And since I came back to work after the festive holidays, I've just been really disinterested in my job, and I don't know what's wrong.
Right. Okay, let me just take a look in your eye here. Okay, look to the left and to the right. Okay, and I'll just check your heart here. If you can breathe in and out. Okay, let's try the back and in and out. Well, that seems quite good. Let's check your ears there. That seems fine. Teeth seem fine, right? Yes. Right. Okay, well, I'm gonna write you a prescription here. I think I've worked out what the problem is.
Yeah?
You're just fucking done with capitalism. It's quite common these days.
What do you prescribe for that?
Weed and a guillotine.
I can manage that.
Prescription's £9.40 each.
That's actually very reasonable.
Mm-hmm. Can't get a guillotine without prescription. Hi, thank you so much for seeing us today. I'm sorry about the smell.
Oh, yes, goodness. What tell me what's going on.
Well, Smudge has, she's not quite been herself, the last couple of weeks. She's been, kind of restless, and I've noticed that her poo has smelt really bad.
Yes, I can definitely, yeah.
If you listen carefully, I have noticed that I can hear a sort of wailing, like tormented souls coming from her hindquarters.
Yeah, yeah, they don't cover this in veterinary school. I'm gonna have to go consult with someone about this.
Oh, hello, yes, I'm the senior vet here. Let's see what seems to be the problem. You say you've heard wailing, is it? Yes. Right, let's see. Yes, there it is, look. Oh, that is a bit, I wanna say brimstoney? Bit like a fiery, just around the edges there. How, is that, is that normal? I did give her a little meatball. There was a meatball. She was, had a pizza. I thought one meatball's not going to hurt her. It's the festive period. It'll be fine. No, that's not it. It's, oi! Should you be poking my cat? Oh! Yes, you see, what happens is sometimes the devil will use a cat's ass as a portal to shit through. And that's what happens. You just gotta poke him in the bum and then seal it up. Do the rites now. Egg, lemon, power of veterinary college compels you. Out you go. There we go. No more demonic bottom for your cat. Yes, do see the service department on the way out, and make sure you pay the bill. Now, yes, you probably shouldn't keep giving her meatballs, but generally I don't think that was the problem. Hopefully you won't get any more of that, but we do have some blessed cream if it does flare up again. So, what went in your eyes?
What went in our eyes? We watched a film. We saw that Sonic 3.
We saw that Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
Sonic 3. Those Sonic films are getting better. They keep making them, and they keep. I would say they keep getting better.
As much as I dislike Jim Carrey, that is a good film.
As much as I have problems with Jim Carrey the human, I cannot deny he gives that role his all, and he definitely fucking put the work in to be two people at once on screen in a way that it was easy to forget that that's one person twice.
Om nom nom, tasty scenery.
He absolutely chewed up that scenery. The scene with the lasers, absolutely baffling, and I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Indeed.
I think that it is largely for the better that they have continued to sideline the human characters.
Agreed.
More and more as the series has gone on.
Agreed.
I think they largely did Shadow the Hedgehog's story really well. I thought they did a very good job of making him an interesting, sympathetic character with his whole relationship with Maria in a way that didn't feel like needlessly edgy or like overly melodramatic. Like, it felt like a pretty good grounded take of what has historically been a slightly hilariously edgy character.
Yeah, there is a reason they call him Edgy the Hedgy.
Yeah. I think Keanu Reeves did a really good job with that role.
Yeah, I think so. He didn't overplay it, and I think it was well animated. Well done to everyone involved in that. I have never finished Sonic Adventure 2. In fact, I don't think I've ever got even halfway through that game.
Yeah.
I really struggled. I really struggled generally with the 3D Sonics.
Yeah.
I also haven't played Shadow the Hedgehog, and I know you are a big fan of Shadow.
Yeah. For all of its real cheesiness.
I like the music, don't get me wrong, but like, yeah, so I probably had less context for it, but yeah, I thought this is one thing I keep talking a lot about 3D films recently. I really enjoyed the texture work in it.
Yes.
I am kind of obsessed with everybody's shoes, especially Knuckles and Shadow.
Yep.
I thought they were carried over perfectly, and I think they look great.
Yeah, I think that the biggest strength of this is that it did lean really heavily on just what is the core story that people like from the games? Let's just do that story that people like. And, you know, maybe we change a few bits here and there to adapt it to the screen. Maybe we tweak a couple of things so that we don't have a bunch of people cheering when a little girl gets shot in the head by... Like, some of those changes they made around Maria, I think, kept the spirit of the original story without being like, it's that moment that it's become a meme for everyone to cheer at.
Yes.
Which I think was probably for the best. But, like, they did a good job of making the characters sympathetic.
Yeah.
I think the humour generally carried pretty well.
Yep.
I think that they've done a good job of having the Sonic, Knuckles, Tails team have good comedic chemistry.
Yeah. I was getting good, was it Heroes? Sonic Heroes with the three of them running together.
It definitely seemed like there was a lot of... They mentioned the name Team Sonic a lot of times as if they were preparing for Sonic Heroes to eventually happen.
Are we getting Heroes? Are we getting Team Chaotix?
I mean, I feel like that's part of where we're going. Like, my gut says probably Shadow spin-off film, then we maybe build up to Sonic Heroes, and I'm like... I could be up for that.
I've talked a little bit about the 3D characters and their costumes, but Robotnik's red jacket, detailing in that jacket, like in all the all the pieces going up the arm and up the back, I thought that was really nicely done. Well done to the costume designers there. Huge fan of that.
You know what I would say that I think I wouldn't have expected this to be my takeaway. This might be my favourite example in terms of, like, game-to-screen adaptations. If we're talking about ones where the adaptation isn't just, like, doing a completely unique story, because usually that's the way I recommend to do it, is, like, take the themes and the idea and make something new with them. Yeah, like, you look at something like the Mario movie the other year, where it's like, this is not based on a specific game. You gave yourself some free reign to do something with it, and, like, you didn't fuck it up as a result.
Yeah.
I'm usually very skeptical of the ones that try and do a video game storyline in a non-interactive medium. This is one of the better attempts I've seen at that. Like, the only other one, and it's a very different piece of media, would be the Last of Us TV show, I think was very much largely a one-to-one retelling of the game events, and it worked. This is another one. I wouldn't have expected the story of a 3D platformer to adapt well to a feature-length film, but this stayed pretty faithful to a lot of the plot beats, while not feeling as threadbare as that kind of adaptation often does. And I think that in and of itself was impressive.
It did make me realise that I had almost completely forgotten everything that happened in Sonic 2.
Agreed. Or I don't know whether some of those characters I was meant to recognise were from the Knuckles TV show that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
That's apparently pretty good, but I've seen one moment from it in which Knuckles, I don't have any context for this, for some reason isn't being played by CGI Echidna Knuckles. There's a sequence in which he's played by a human man dressed as Knuckles.
Right.
Fighting a...
Is it actually Idris Elba?
It's not Idris Elba. It's someone else in a very cheap Knuckles costume beating up a monster made of cardboard boxes.
Amazing.
And I don't know the context for what's happening there.
Why would you need context
But
for that?
it did make me go, maybe I need to watch this Knuckles show. It seems like it's taken some silly creative swings I might enjoy.
Yeah, do it.
But yeah, Sonic, pretty good.
An enjoyable time out.
It's good that we're getting to an era of video game adaptation movies being pretty alright.
It was nice to go to the cinema and see grown adults with crocheted Sonic the Hedgehog.
Hell yeah, it was. What else have we seen?
We finished watching Kevin Can Fuck Himself Season 2.
We did. We've been like 2 episodes from finished on that for months, I'm gonna say.
That is true.
We binged most of seasons 1 and 2 in like I would say in like less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then it was going to be over when we finished those last couple of episodes, and we just didn't do that. So we've talked about this show before. For anyone who didn't hear or has forgotten, it is that show that is at times a sitcom and at times a very serious drama about an abusive, terrible relationship.
Yes.
Depending on whether laugh it off, this is all just a joke, husband is in the room, or whether we are outside of that setting where it is like woman being like, no, that was actually a really traumatic thing, and as soon as we take away the lighting and the laugh track, that was actually pretty fucked up what happened, wasn't it? Fascinating bit of like storytelling device.
Yeah.
I am really happy with how that show ended. Yeah. I'm glad it ended where it did. I wouldn't want more of it.
No, I think that is absolutely spot on. I
think that final tense, like, 10-15 minutes, that final exchange between the main 2 characters was so fucking good of a bit of, like, genuinely tense TV.
Yeah, and I think the appropriate escalation for that.
Yeah.
Not comfortable at all, but correct.
Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily too spoilery to say, for a show that always lets its sort of villainous character get away with the facade of sitcomery, I think that at some point they were going to have to drop that and let his actions be seen in real time in the stark light of what they are.
Even he couldn't fool himself anymore.
He no longer had an audience to contextualize his actions.
Indeed. And
I think they went the exact correct amount of chilling.
Yeah.
Like, his dialogue in that the last big scene is, like, so genuinely fucking uncomfortable. Yeah. And the thing I think that finale did really well is there's a couple of points in season 2 where I caught myself going, is our main character going a little too far in her attempts to get away from Kevin? Is, are the dramatic plans she's coming up with really necessary? Couldn't she just say, I'm leaving, I need to leave, this needs to be over?
Yeah.
But that final scene, I think, really, stripping everything away, really reminded, no, I can see why someone would feel the need to do the big dramatic thing.
Yeah.
This man is a genuinely fucking scary man when it comes down to it.
And to that point, I don't think we had actually seen him for himself outside of his sitcom at any point.
We'd seen the aftermath of his actions. We knew he was a fucked up man.
Yes.
But we'd had to imagine what his actions were like outside of the sitcom lens.
Yes.
And I think they didn't... I don't think they overplayed it. I think they did the exact right amount of look at this man for what he is.
Yeah, and I also think some of that was tempered a little bit by earlier on in Series 2, there is a bit of a back and forth between some other characters about how the main character and Kevin they both have their faults.
Yeah.
They have both done really stupid things.
Yeah.
They have both done things that are certainly morally questionable.
Yeah.
So, like, not that our main character deserves it at all.
No.
But that you can maybe see how 2 people that fundamentally flawed fell together.
Yes.
And despite everything else, hadn't fallen apart.
Yes. And I think I think that final episode really did a good job of, because there's a point in season 2 where a character really does present like the like, oh, here is another woman who was in a shitty abusive relationship and did just walk away.
Yeah.
And I think that finale does a really good job of going, there is a reason it might have been harder than that here, and why it wasn't just as easy as just do what that other woman did and walk away.
Yeah.
This is its own situation, and it has its own pretty scary problems.
Oh, yes.
God, that show is so well written.
Oh, yes.
It is a pretty fantastic... There's nothing quite like it.
No?
It very much... It feels like a show I would talk about in, like, the same light as maybe season 1 of The Good Place, in terms of, like, there's nothing quite like it, and I don't think I'm going to feel the need to, like, repeatedly binge it, but I'm glad I saw it.
No.
I'm glad I got to experience the thing it was.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Kevin Can Fuck Himself is real interesting.
It really is.
What else have we been watching?
We went to see Lord of the Rings War of the Rohirrim.
Yeah, we did. That anime Lord of the Rings film.
Yeah.
What'd you think of that?
It's very much an anime.
It is.
By virtue of, I think, like, the main character's costume.
Yes.
It just screamed, I need you to be able to see me in amongst a lot of other things happening in action scenes.
Yes, you need to be able to pick me out of a crowd instantly.
Otherwise, white, not particularly appropriate a lot of the time in that sort of context.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, for all the stuff it had to basically come up with whole cloth,
Yeah.
I enjoyed what was there. I thought it told a really good story.
Yeah, as the Lord of the Rings lore person, did it feel fitting with the existing lore that exists in the setting?
The bits I know about, like, around that sort of stuff, I thought it was fine.
Nothing felt obviously anachronistic about it.
Yeah, like, I don't know, I think part of me is just getting older and a little less precious about things like this.
That's fair.
This is less the child who went to bed listening to the BBC 1981 audio drama of Lord of the Rings, like every single night for nearly 20
I get
years.
you, yep.
And also like had all the read the books.
Yeah.
And like had a lot of other attachments to it, like the Interplay PC game from 1981. Had a lot of attachment to things and got quite precious about certain things. And, like, there are still things that annoy me about the second 2 movies.
Yeah.
But I think, like, this and Rings of Power, I have felt way less precious about.
I'm glad. That sounds like a nice place to be.
It is. It's like, you know what, I don't mind so much.
Yeah.
Especially when it's trying to do stuff outside of the bits I know really well, or even the bits I'm tangentially relatively aware from my various attempts to listen to audiobook versions of The Silmarillion.
Yeah.
And, like, I did read the appendices, but, like, I've read them once as opposed to the rest of the book, which I've definitely read multiple times. So it was nice to just go in and go, this is an enjoyable story about, like, things that have certainly been mentioned either in passing or in, like, that very Tolkien-esque way of, we're just going to casually mention, like, the name of a hero of the past or a thing that happened in the past. And it's like, that's cool. That's a cool thing that they're doing. And,
things I think that film did very well. For its runtime, it didn't feel overly long.
No.
While managing to really have, like, a multi-part saga narrative to it. Like,
yes.
It really was here is a story told over multiple eras in multiple settings that, like, even when it reaches its big set piece location, felt like, you know, there's a point where it's like, hey, for the next 6 months, these characters are going to be trapped in a place. It managed to convey that feeling of, like, a really drawn out siege battle of like the war of attrition aspect. Without feeling dragged out, without feeling like it was rushing and managing to capture, like, its ability to feel like it did so much with its runtime, I thought was really impressive.
Yeah, also the animation itself was really interesting. Like, some of it was just, like, really beautifully done and felt almost like watching things like, I want to say, like, El Dorado or Cities of Gold and things like that, because it's an interesting mix of quite flat characters, quite flat shaded characters, on these super fucking detailed backgrounds.
Yes.
Which initially, like, at the start of the film felt a little bit jarring, but by the end of it, it was like, oh yeah, it makes sense in these huge war scenes, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to, like, pick out what is happening as well. By virtue of the fact that the flat characters are, like, doing all the fighting and stuff, and then you've got, like, all the mud and the fog and the snow.
Yes, despite how detailed and beautiful the backgrounds were, them being so different style-wise to the characters meant that you could counterintuitively kind of tune the backgrounds out during the combat really well.
Yeah.
It was definitely one of those animated films that, like, saved some of its budget in certain places to make sure that it could splurge that budget when the time came.
Yeah.
So, like, some of the sword-fighting combat scenes were really impressive.
Some of it felt like it might be rotoscoped. I almost gave it, like, real, like, Ralph Bakshi vibes.
I definitely think there were several sequences that were rotoscoped, and they did a really interesting job of when to use that sort of rotoscope effect. It was a good adventure there.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I would very much watch more from that studio.
Yeah.
What I tried to look up, I couldn't find that they'd done a huge amount. So yeah, more of that.
It was nice to see a Lord of the Rings thing that told a concise, self-contained story that didn't sprawl out into a multi-part epic that was like, we told that kind of saga style of story in one sitting. And I would appreciate more of that out of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, like I feel like there is still like a lot of like backstory stuff that, as long as you can keep it away from Peter Jackson and, or more importantly, I guess Warner Brothers, for their we've got to turn it into a trilogy. We've got to take this simple story and make it much, much longer than it needed to be, and fuck about with it to such an extent that it's unrecognisable. And I think by this of just being like, we've got a story, we've got our setting. We're going to tell this one particular thing, and it exists in that world, and I'm sure it is partly just to keep some of the licensing stuff, but it didn't feel cheap in that.
Yeah, like, there was clearly a moment toward the end where it was like, and this is why this location is named after this person. And it's like, I can see you want to tie it into things that people that know the Peter Jackson films will know, but they managed to do so without feeling like, it didn't feel like, here's the Han Solo backstory film so you can know why he's got dice on his wing mirror. It wasn't one of those, here's the thing that justifies itself by explaining a thing you never felt the need to know. It's like, no, the point isn't to give you a backstory to blank, but we'll offhandedly mention it, and you go, oh, that's why that's called that.
Yeah.
And in a kind of nice way.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I would watch more things from that studio, and even more things by that studio in the Lord of the Rings universe, so well done.
Yeah.
More of that. And I think the last thing we watched was Lower Decks Season 4.
We did, it's such a shame that that's the last season of it, because
it's a good ending. Considering where that series started, I really did not like the first series.
We've talked before about Season 1 of Lower Decks, like, I definitely liked it a bit more than you did, but I think we both agreed that, like, its problem was that it was afraid to stop and breathe for even a second.
Yeah, and also it was trying to be very, very juvenile.
Oh, yeah. It was trying a little too hard to be edgy, and it was afraid that if it wasn't making a joke every single second, you'd get bored.
Yeah, it felt like it was trying to capture, like, Season 3 or 4 Family Guy.
A little bit. Season 2... we both were like, oh, you found your footing. Because, like, it became a little more willing to stop and give itself breathing room, and to tell, like, it seemed to feel a little less afraid of being sincere about things.
Yeah.
And that went a long way. Season 3 got a little more like, hey, maybe we play around with an acknowledgement of what the fan community feels about other bits of Star Trek, and we tell some stories that maybe playfully play in that space. Yeah. Like, we had the, someone got Tuvixed.
Everyone's been
Tuvixed. We got to talk about the Tuvix problem again. Like that in Season 3. Season 4, little bit of that. We got some fan servicey things. I think there's one fan servicey thing in particular that
a lot of people were very happy about.
A lot of people were very happy
people
about.
were very unhappy about. But those people can fuck off.
Those people can fuck off. But I think this is the most that like a season of Lower Decks has felt like it had one season-long story it wanted to tell.
Yeah, like I feel we've had a little bit of that with I think Badgie in Series 2 and I can't even remember what happened in Series 3, but like I remember there being like a wider arc, but it felt more sprinkled in Season 3, and this was very much Mirror Universe shit is happening.
It very much felt like you could have made a version of this story in something like Voyager or TNG, and it wouldn't have felt out of place. You'd have had to tell it a little differently, but like the basic plot beats would have worked in a main series Star Trek season.
Yeah,
and I like that it's matured to that point.
Yeah, and I am curious about what's happening next because it seems like Tammy Newsome might be involved in whatever the next Star Trek thing is going to be.
Star Trek Upper Decks.
Maybe Middle Decks, who knows?
Yeah.
I am ready for more from that writing team. And I'm
glad they got more than that one season.
Yeah.
That they had a second chance to give it another look around.
And I desperately enjoyed from season 3 the crossover with Strange New Worlds.
Oh, that was so gorgeous. That brief moment in time where Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks were both at their peak at the same time. They were doing good work.
Oh, yeah. Is that everything you've watched?
I think so. I think that's the main things.
Well then.
Time for this.
Hello.
Yes?
We've got a new sponsor.
Who's our new sponsor?
Well, have you recently had some time off?
Oh, I have. It's been lovely.
Have you recently turned all of your alarms off and just gone to bed whenever and got up whenever?
Yeah, and that did in turn lead to me adjusting to like some quite late bedtimes and some late ups. I'm more of a night person, it seems.
Did you find this morning a bit of a fucking wrench?
Oh, it's a bit of a fucking wrench indeed. It fucking hell was.
Well, that's where this week's sponsor comes in. This week's sponsor is circadianreadjuster.lol.net.
Tell me more.
It tweaks your bedtime and morning alarms in small increments to readjust you from your natural holiday rhythm to your work rhythm.
Just to wake me up a little earlier until I'm back to working on capitalism's clock.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's great. It's a great way of not having that moment where you're just completely wiped out in midday and you think you want to just have a bit of a cry, and then you eat dinner and have to have a little nap before getting on with your second job of the day.
Yeah. It gets you a little less abruptly back to that.
Yeah, that's the plan. So that is circadianreadjuster.lol.net. Enter the code Quoops Wake Me Up because the holiday's over, and you will get 15% off your first month of the app. Ooh, I know, right? Inside the boardroom of Supremacy Software.
Hi. So, I want to lay some people off.
I love laying people off.
Right, that's more money for us.
Yeah, also, it sounds like laying people.
Well, I mean, I do love that too.
Yeah.
But
Lads.
Lads. But letting people go and getting rid of their jobs, like around the festive period, is typically a little frowned upon.
Gets my nipples tingling, though.
I know, I love it, but apparently the people being fired, not such fans.
Yeah, well, fuck them.
Well, fuck them. But also, I'm wondering if we can repackage, festive layoffs as some kind of a bonus, some kind of a positive spin that maybe they'll be less complaining online about it.
Right? Yeah.
So I've been working on a little story picture book that we can show them. That's like one day Santa came to the Supremacy Software offices with a very special gift for the workers. Here? With a very special gift for the workers. That special gift was extra time off with their families. What a wonderful festive gift.
What a gift we have given.
Exactly. What a wonderful festive
gift. We truly are
gift.
like the elves and therefore should, get a gift of bonus.
Exactly. And then on the very last page, we quietly go, you are being laid off. And we close the book. And
A happy ending.
Yeah, we read you a nice little story, a happy ending. Go home, please.
You are a festive genius.
I know.
So, what have you put in your ear rolls?
Honestly, not a lot.
Not a lot. I mean,
Nah,
it's not really been the time for it.
not really been time for
No.
it. You been put much in your ears?
I listened to a new album which I discovered through TikTok. Thanks, TikTok. This is a group called Valtos. They are from Scotland, and the album was Valtos and Friends, and they do a lot of like chill, liquidy drum and bass with like flute and other live instruments. And like Scott's vocals over the top, and yeah, it's all very chill and whimsical, and just like it was nice making breakfast music.
yeah.
I come up on a Saturday morning, people are here that I care about, and I'm going to feed them, and that feels nice. And yeah, just like good to bop around to, really light, not too aggy, good for first thing in the morning. And yeah, it was very chill. I wanna listen to it a few more times. But yes, that is my new music recommendation that I enjoyed recently.
Nice.
You listen to anything else?
Really not. It's not been a listening couple of weeks.
Well then,
Time for this.
hey billionaire, we found your weird alt where you're complimenting yourself in the third person.
That's not me. No. But I mean, if it was me, wouldn't it actually be super cool that I have an alternate account that I use to tell myself how cool I am?
No.
And wouldn't it actually be a sign of how mentally healthy and overall happy and not insecure I am?
No.
Because it shows that I love myself and want to give myself little affirmations, and that's what you on the left are always saying I should be doing.
No.
It shows that you're an isolated, insular, kind of an incel dickhead who's really, 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 like, deeply insecure about yourself.
No, it doesn't. Anyway, look at that account over there that's also not me saying that he agrees with me.
Yeah, that's just your picture with a moustache drawn on it, and their audio recordings, you can tell because nobody else quite has your cadence.
Look
So
at
it
that
is
one.
exactly-
Look at that one. He's wearing a hat.
Yeah, this is the worst game of Guess Who ever. They're all you in different outfits.
That one's upside down. Couldn't be me.
That's Australian you. Legally distinct Musclon E.
If it was me, it would be cool though.
No.
Oh.
No part of you is cool, Musclon.
Oh.
Ready for the new year?
Oh, yeah, just about.
Yeah, you, new year, new me, is it?
Oh, yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, how about you?
I mean, it's been a tight year. I don't really have the budget for new me, so taking a risk. I'm gonna try one of those new year refurbished me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, guaranteed for 6 months apparently. So
Well, that's 50% of the year right there.
yeah, so it'll probably be fine, right?
Yeah.
Probably fine.
That's fine. Let's hope that any problems happen in the first. Can you choose which 6 months of the year to have warranted?
No, I think it's got to be.
It's got to be the first
from
6. You can't run the numbers and go, I want the last 6 months warranted.
Okay. Well, she's here. Hi. You are not what I expected. You're not what I expected. Why are you a girl? Well, about that. Wow, you really are an old model. Well,
I got some extra in savings. Let's go new year, new you.
sorry, kid, we're sending you back. Oh, back into storage. Fair enough. Warranty's not worth the paper it's written on anyway.
Never is.
Do you know what I want to see more of?
What do you want to see more of?
Social justice warriors.
Social Justice Warriors.
Yeah.
Right, Larry.
Right, Mary, how you doing?
I am a sleepy little bean, mate. You doing all right?
Oh, I'm the same.
Yeah.
End of the year, I'm all just sort of snuggling it out.
Yeah, well, happy new quiz, mate.
Happy new quiz to you. I've been thinking about a thing.
Oh,
I've been thinking about a thing. It's end of the year. I've been thinking about a thing.
Well, is this your 2024 wrap up, mate?
Well, just thinking about things at the end of the year. We live in a world where food banks are a thing. And, ideally, we would live in a world where they didn't need to be a thing, where we would sort out, making sure that people just had access to money if they needed it to get themselves the necessities they need in life, that you would not need to rely on the kindness of setting up an establishment to make sure that people got fed, for example.
Yeah, especially since that is also, adding extra payment where donations are ultimately seeping out in the forms of labour that's being paid in other words.
Yeah, it's
that labour shouldn't be fairly compensated.
Yeah, but it is a system that is not an ideal solution to its problem. But in the world we live in, I am glad that there are food banks that exist. But one thing that I've been seeing about recently, and I thought was interesting, it is a very good point that a lot of food banks, the sort of form they exist in is you show up and here is your sort of hamper that is. Everyone gets the box of quote-unquote necessities that is not really tailored to who is showing up. It is a box of things you can survive on. Hopefully they meet your requirements.
Yeah, I imagine some of that is about rationing.
Indeed, and there is a degree of necessity going on there, but it is... it causes problems for a lot of people who have various restrictions going on, or just... want some of the dignity of being able to make some choices about what they consume. Even if someone's in a bad financial situation, they still ideally deserve a bit of autonomy. And it's a thing that I've been seeing recently that I think is an interesting idea, and I would love to see be explored more in a world where we have to have food banks. Is food banks that have started cropping up that have a system that is much more. Here is essentially a supermarket that you do not have to pay when you leave, where you can go and find things on the shelf and there are options, and you can, maybe there are some limitations on quite how much you can take, but you have some flexibility in finding the things you need and being able to make those choices about what it is actually you need in terms of support and what you are able to engage with that will help you survive,
And I imagine from a running it side of things, you also then get an idea of what you need to be ordering in rather than, because a lot of these places, they say it's better to give us donations because we can get more discounts on bulk orders for what we're buying rather than, you bringing in 3 packets of, or 3 tins of
out of date. It's your tin of out of date peaches in the back of your cupboard. Yeah, and that's the thing, is that it allows not only, flexibility and choice for the person in need to still have some control in their life, but as you say, it does allow those who are sort of spending those donations to get a better sense of what is actually needed within their community.
Yeah, what is useful to those people.
Yeah, and it is a thing that I'd not seen discussed. I thought, that is actually a good idea. In a world in which we haven't eradicated the need for food banks entirely, I'm glad that other forms of them are starting to be experimented with,
Yeah, absolutely. When I just hope that we can get more of that.
Yeah, and
more sort of social things, making sure everyone has the basic necessities that they need.
Exactly.
Hedgehog, mate.
Oh, yeah.
Good dog, mate.
Good dog.
Right, I think I'll go and have a little bath and see the new year in, mate.
Oh, sounds lovely.
Right, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So, Laura,
Yes.
New Year, what do? Where people find new you in the new year?
People can find me, I'm not sure if new me, but continuing me, at Laura K Buzz, pretty much everywhere on the internet. Laura K Buzz on Blue Sky, TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, Patreon, that's the one that pays the bills. Things you can find of mine. My Game of the Year stuff from end of 2024 is up on YouTube, talking about 18 games from 2024 that I wanted to talk about, that I thought were doing interesting things. You can find more stuff coming from me in the coming weeks. There'll be a Proteus controller review in the next couple of weeks. Some thoughts about what accessibility should be doing in the year ahead. All that sort of stuff. Laura K. Buzz. What about you, Jane? Where are you out on the internet?
I don't have unified branding, but I have a link tree. It's linktree.ee/Janiac, Janiac, Janiac. You can find the things I've written, the music I've made, the t-shirts I've designed, and you can help support me at patreon.com/stonedmonkeyradio. As little as $1 a month really helps, especially in these cold early months of the year. Which it will be shortly. Also, it's nearly my birthday, so
it is.
Consider a gift. Maybe you don't have to, or maybe a share. A share's always good. A share's a good gift. You share. You give a gift to a friend or an enemy. That's it for me, Laura.
Yeah.
Sing us out, please, darling.
Until next time, be a stranger.